Okay, cool.
Hey! We're back together.
Oh, this is our first actual one we've done together. Everything's been through streaming.
Yeah, we're back together. We're streaming. We're live at FanX with our buddies down here, and a whole bunch of people in the audience. All 10 of you, make some noise. Multiplane Podcast. We are live right now on Multiplane Podcast. We still have about 5 minutes to get anybody else that wants to come into this panel clear off into the end of the world that I booked it to. But thank you so much for coming. I do have some random Disney prizes that we'll give out somehow during the show. But this originally was titled The Best and Worst of Disney Plus. So we're going to talk about some of the worst as well. I know we're all Disney fans, but it's not always good, right? Luckily, they fixed some and there's like other people that want to be here.
In the meantime, I'd like to thank each of you for coming, so thank you. Thank you. Thanks, buddy. Come back. Thanks. I know that you're holding some seats. Okay, standing room. I only got that side of the room. Thank you.
Yeah, he took his time with this side. This side was just getting.
Well, the joke is getting
When has that ever stopped you before?
That's a good point. Thanks, Tracy.
And while we have all of your attention, if Disney is your thing, I'm pretty much moderating. I feel like every Disney panel this week. I think there's two maybe that I'm not.
But the one I am.
Yeah, like I don't know how they missed me on that one, but so we're going to kind of pimp out everything that we're doing, but I'll give you a rundown really quick. Tomorrow, we're going to be creating our own multiverse at 11 a.m. in 251A. So basically, we are going to build it. It's going to be, totally interactive, back and forth, ridiculous on how we would want that multiverse to go. Everybody's like, is it kind of like What If? I don't know. We brought it together before What If came out like 2 years ago. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit like that. There's going to be people that disagree on things because Ty and I do not, we're on the same podcast, but we really don't like each other at all or any of the same things. So we hope to see you there. Also, the history of Disney parks, which I don't know how I got on to moderating this panel because yes, I love going to Disneyland and I just went there, but I don't really know a lot about the history, but luckily a lot of people I know do. And so I said, hey, do you want to come be on this panel? Make this panel look good? So that's going to be.
I didn't get invited to that one.
You can totally show up, John. You do whatever you want anyway. You kind of just always show up to the panels and sit down, so you're totally fine. So that one's going to be Saturday at 10 a.m. at 151D, and then the other podcast that I'm on with Tracy and Jake, Movies That Make Us, we're going to go live and do the Black Widow Beyond the Ledger. And that's going to be Saturday at 4. We're going to deep dive into Black Widow.
That might be a little bit smaller than the group you have right now.
Wow. Wow, this is going to
You're so grounded right now. He's 12 years old. I just want you guys to know this.
And I added because I shaved, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's 12.
It works.
So yeah, and then I'll let everybody kind of go down. Let's start right now with this idiot, and he can tell you who he is. We love each other. And what he's doing. And at the end, you guys can all pimp your panels as well, but just spend like a minute telling everyone who you are, what your background is, and where they can find you.
So my name is Ty. I'm with Multiplane Podcast with my co-host Val, who likes to hate on me a lot, but we're good. My background is I went to school for cinema effects makeup, and I've dabbed in that a little bit, and now getting more hardcore into podcasting and talking more about film. So you can find us at Multiplane Podcast.
On all the places. It's all Disney.
And if you want some really cool Halloween ideas, This
His
guy,
yard
follow
looks
him.
like yard looks like a Disney park. It
Yeah,
really does.
it really does. My name is Tracy Mangum, a local podcaster here with Val on Movies That Make Us, along with Jake. So do that, local filmmaker, and taught film for about 11 years. So excited to be here, big Disney fan.
Hi, I'm Scott Renshaw. I'm the arts and entertainment editor and film critic for the Salt Lake City Weekly. And I also cover Disney Plus originals for MiceChat.com, which is, I guess, the reason that I'm here.
He's legitimate.
I have credentials.
That's like a big site.
I know. And so I'll be doing I've got the panel, the Beauty and the Beast panel that's later today, the Mickey Mask returning to the Disney parks in the Age of COVID panel later today, Jaws anniversary panel on Saturday, and the other thing that Val just mentioned on Saturday morning.
The other thing.
The other thing that I got pulled into but isn't actually on my schedule.
The history of the Disney parks.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
My name is Jacqueline Weiss. I am an author. I've written 50 books, anywhere from early readers up to romance for adults. And I have 6 kids, ages 11 to 20. So that's how I got on this panel, because I'm on Disney
Because she
Channel
needed a break.
lot. Yes, that too. And I have the Beauty and the Beast panel tonight. I'm on Lucifer right after this. And can't wait for my photo op with Misha tomorrow. And let's see. I have a Hobbits one on Saturday and a one about using pop culture for mental health on Saturday, and Space Jam tomorrow.
Woohoo!
So, hi campers. My name is John Smith. I am a radio show host here in the great city of Salt Lake City. I am also a Disneyland fan and a friend of these kids down here. It's kind of funny, if there's a Disney panel, chances are it's either me or Val, or Tracy. It'll be
I try and do other things. I pitched other things. I know other things.
It's kind of funny. Val and I went to high school together.
We terrorized Taylorsville High at the same time.
And she and I, we helped start the school's TV station.
We're nerds.
And now we're competing radio show hosts.
We're not competing.
Well, I mean, we're radio show hosts.
And we both just went and did our shows live from Disneyland on Monday, which was really cool.
How is this not the premise for a sitcom?
Right?
You know what's funny is
You write it and we'll do it.
There are 3 morning shows in Salt Lake City that all went to high school at Taylorsville the same year.
That's what tells you do not send your kids to Taylorsville High School because they will end up in radio.
We're all allergic to money. But no, I'm a Disneyland fan. I'm a big Disney nerd, so I collect park artifacts, park history. I don't think I've read 50 books, let alone written any. And I had to literally pull out my panel list to know what I'm doing later today, let alone the rest of the week. So I'll be on Cobra Kai, the Cobra Kai panel right after this, apparently, and I'll be on Mickey Masked later tonight. So I'm stoked about that because I did Disney World Masked last year, Disneyland Unmasked in June, and then Masked again earlier this week. So we've got some comparisons to go over.
So as you can see and hear, a lot of us, all of us are Disney fans. We spend a lot of time, some of us having to watch Disney movies, whether we want to or not, because we're film critics. And when Disney Plus came out, they started sending us all of these screeners, so that we could kind of get out whether it was, going to be something or not. How many of you guys were super excited about Disney Plus, knowing that you could go to one place to watch all the Disney? And we're not in school, so you can make the noise. Bring the noise through the masks. But before we get into all the good stuff, I like to go with the bad news first on everything. And so in the beginning of Disney Plus, you guys, there were some glitches. Mm-hmm. There were some issues. So why don't you guys take some time and talk about kind of the things that didn't work at first and maybe they have fixed now, or maybe they haven't?
I would, but I'm still waiting for my first day to load. It's still got that circle. I haven't been able to watch anything yet.
So I watch it on my phone and my laptop and my TV, sometimes both at the same time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's, who wants to go first? Some glitches or things you didn't love about Disney Plus.
I think my biggest thing, besides, everybody trying to get on at once, so it didn't work for anybody, was the security issues. At the first, someone got into our account, changed the email address on the account, so we couldn't even get in to fix it. And we had to change everything, start with a new email address that nobody had ever used. I mean, it was a mess. So that was a big thing that they've had to fix, because it was that easy to get in and mess with someone else's account.
Now, Scott, do you know this? If anybody knows it, it's probably you. Did they push Disney Plus out ahead of schedule, like before they were supposed to?
Not that I'm aware of, and I
Okay.
mean, it was obviously a fairly fortuitous thing that it was
Right.
coming right before everyone was sitting at home and
Right.
watching a bunch of stuff. But I mean, I think like a lot of things in the entertainment industry, they had a date and, they had a release date. It's kind of like any software, anyone who worked in the software industry knows you have your release date and you'll worry about debugging it later. And it's probably no different than any other software release in that way.
Well, I know that Bob Iger was kind of gunning for it. If you read his autobiography, that
You
we
should,
love,
by the way.
he takes an entire section where he talks about how either it was ESPN or Hulu that was developing the app to kind of go off the phone. He's like, hey, we need to purchase this. We need to implement Disney onto this. We need to get it out quick so we can be ahead of the
game.
curve. Yeah.
And they really were ahead of the game, and they didn't even know how ahead they were. But for me, it's so funny that I feel like Disney fans and Star Wars fans are the same, and I love you all. But we love it so much, but we're quick to turn and be like, we love you, Disney. And then Disney Plus, it takes like 20 minutes to load like old AOL. And then we click, we hate you, Disney.
This is the worst app ever.
Nobody hates Disney more than somebody who loves Disney.
It's like we broke it as soon as they gave it to us. And we kept getting the circle of death that Disney, is pretty famous for on their, whether it be the parks, Disney Plus, you get that circle of death that constantly pops up.
I didn't really experience, it was only sort of secondhand that I was aware that other people, I just completely lucked out in the early days. I did not have any of that kind of drama. For me, it's just what is and isn't there. And I think there was a lot, just because there were so many lingering contracts with other networks and things that you didn't have. And they would have the little picture there. It's like, oh, you go to click on it. It's like available in July of 2022.
Feels like every movie right now.
What are you just teasing me with? So, I mean, I think that there was a lot of expectation about the content that would and wouldn't be there. And there was some problems.
They pretty much hyped it up that everything they had ever done was going to be available on Disney Plus minus some itself. It was kind of that build up. And so then when there was stuff missing, one of my things that I was bummed for a while, which they've remedied, is they did not have a whole ton of Muppet Show content on there. And now I think there's only 4 episodes, I want to say, that aren't there because of music contract rights.
They're making up for it, though.
Well, and I believe they still have some contracts with other streaming networks, because you'll see some stuff on Disney Plus, and then you'll see it gone, but it's on Netflix or Amazon or something, because they're rotating it through. I kind of like the idea. I don't know what you guys think about this, but I liked the idea that I couldn't get it all at once, because I wanted to go through it. And then I turned it on one day and I'm like, oh, look, there's the shorts. And then like 2 months later, I was like, oh, look, there's all the movies that are horrible that I watched when I was a kid, and I'm still going to watch them right now.
Blackbeard's Ghost.
Yeah. So like they were kind of trickling in. You guys are going to get into
My
fisticuffs.
wife is going to reach through the screen. And
But let's talk about their kind of timeline of shows. So it was kind of all like they just kind of uploaded them, and then they just expect you to sift through it. Did any of you guys have this where you had no idea where anything was? And now I feel like they're kind of putting it in some kind of order. They've got, the Marvel, the Star Wars, Disney, and even when you go into Marvel, you see, the categorized. So what do you guys think about that?
I think they did have it, but we had to click on a whole lot of buttons to ever get there. And they had it by the decade. But it took a long time to get there. And then when we turned it off, heaven forbid, we had to remember how to get back there.
Right.
So now it's a lot easier to find it. But, trying to go through that. And my kids go through their stages of, hey, I want to start with the first Disney princess and move down. And so we have to go to a different channel to find, a different website to say, okay, this one's gonna be next. But I do think they're getting better with how they have things organized.
And you know, expectations can have a lot to do with it. They've had some time to work through things, and at least their user interface now is usable. Whether it's like something like Paramount Plus, you know, I mean, it's just, there's some of these other streaming sites, it's like they don't actually want you to watch anything. They're, you know, you cannot, the search functions are terrible, and you just suddenly are grateful that someone's had a few months to figure out some of these things.
Yeah, on Netflix, my dad clicked on, he had like watched one movie that was in Spanish, and now his whole leading up to, he's like, how do I get out? So he's leaning in. It's been 3 months. He's been 3 months into the telenovela, and I think it's changing him as a person for the better. I love you, Dad. I love you. All right, so really quick, because not everybody has enough time to spend all the hours on Disney Plus. But what's your favorite deep dive show, TV show, movie, animation that you got in there and you found it like under some dust in Disney Plus, and you're like, ooh, this is so neat. I forgot about this. Do you guys have any favorite deep dives?
The classic animation, I don't know if they rotate in or if the algorithm is just putting new stuff in the search field, but I'm finding like a bunch of old Donald Duck cartoons. And there's the classic, I forget what it's called. Scott will probably know, the one where Spring marries the devil. You know the cartoon I'm thinking of? Oh, there's one of these cartoon shorts, and Mother Earth literally marries Satan. And I'm watching this with my daughter, who was 5 at the time, and she's like, "Wait." She's like, "So Mother Earth is marrying Satan," and I'm like, "Yep."
I think that's Florida.
And that's like, man, the world has changed a lot the last few decades, hasn't it? But that kind of got her down this classic animation rabbit hole. 2 years later, or a year and a half, she's now 7, and she loves the classics. You know, and the other thing are the new Mickey shorts, which are my absolute most favorite thing in the world. And they're also equally as terrifying to watch with children, because there's one where Donald sets the 7 dwarves on fire. Like, what am I watching with my kid? What is going on here? But she's laughing, so I'm like, hey, all right, well, guess it works.
You know, I'm sure that John has found some of the vintage parks content too, and some of that stuff is really great. The Disneyland through the decades, the old, you know, Wonderful World of Disney episode there was the one that was from late 66 or early 67, because I think it was actually broadcast after Walt Disney died, but it was one of the last things he filmed, and it was about, you know, all the things that happened at Disneyland in 1966, opening up, you know, It's a Small World there because it had moved from the World's Fair, and the opening of New Orleans Square, and there's just, you get to see all this stuff, and it's like, oh, I remember what that used to look like before they put the bridge over, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean and all that good stuff. So, I mean, that's what I dig into, is just some of the stuff, you know, those are the deep cuts for me, is just finding stuff that, you know, and I wish there were more. I wish there were more old Wonderful World of Disney episodes.
Did you watch the one where the Mouseketeers go to Disney World in the 70s?
Yes.
Oh, that's if you haven't seen that, watch that. It's incredible. It's a great time capsule.
I go back to the old Disney original movies that I watched when I was younger, not necessarily a kid, but younger, and, you know, even Stevens and That's So Raven and all those, now that they've come back and done their grown-up shows with Girl Meets World and Raven's Home and those, and it's been fun to see which ones my kids get into and which ones they think are completely boring. And Luck of the Irish is actually one of my very favorites, which is ironic because I write a lot of books about Leprechaun.
And they shot that here, right?
Yeah.
That was shot here. Yeah.
And that's where I actually ran into Timothy Omenson first. He was the evil leprechaun. Nobody knew that. But that's one of my very favorites. And then A Ring of Endless Light is another one that's one of my very favorites. It's Madeline L'Engle book. And they did a fantastic job with it. And it's actually, the main character is the same one for both of those. But that's what we do, is go back to a lot of the ones I watched. And my kids just rewatched and rewatched and rewatched. I mean, I don't know how many times we watched Ant Farm and Hannah Montana and Jesse and all those, like countless times. And each one of the kids have their specific one that they want to watch with mom. So I think right now I'm watching Jesse, Ant Farm, and Hannah Montana at the same time, depending on the kid.
I'm sorry. I love finding the old Touchstone movies,
Yes.
which you don't necessarily think of Disney.
Right, I came across them a couple weeks ago, and I was
Yeah.
cleaning my kitchen. And I'm like, wait, there's Lily Tomlin.
Oh, yeah.
This is on here.
Miss-
But it's
How many James and the Giant Peach fans? There you go.
Okay, unanimous.
you guys can't see that, but more than one person. Like just one person
It
was
wasn't me
clapping, but there
clapping.
was at least half the
That was
room.
like 3/4 of the room.
But I went and rewatched the entire season of series of Gargoyles. That was something. As soon as I got into Disney Plus, I was like, "Okay, it's there. They didn't mess up."
I love the fact that I can just watch all the shorts.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I think because I have to watch a lot of bad movies, I like to go home and cleanse myself. And so sometimes it's past my bedtime because I wake up really early in the morning to work. And so I'll just turn on a short. And I just love, the shorts to me are some of my favorite content on Disney Plus. And so, yeah, I love that all of those are there. I want to be a bad guy before we get into like your favorites. I know I asked you all to come up with like some of your favorite things on Disney Plus. Now that Disney Plus exists, there's a whole bunch new like kids series popping up. Of course, we've got The Mandalorian, we've got Loki, we've got, you know, all of these series. And some people think that it's too much, it's overkill. Some of the content, like some of these younger junior shows that I have to watch, it's just not my jam. But they said it's not really up to par with like High School Musical and those things when they had to spend more time. What do you guys think about all of the content that's being created? Is it too much? Is it up to par with Disney standards? Are people going to get burned out in your opinion? That's a lot of questions.
I mean, I think you have to take them on a case-by-case basis. It's easy to look at the overall trend, and they're using all of their IP. It's a Turner and Hooch show. It's a Doogie show. But there are some, I mean, I think that the Mighty Ducks show was shockingly good. I really think that the new Mighty Ducks series, I think that the kid actors were really good, and it's a really strong show. So, you know, it's easy for that to kind of fall into that, you know, hole if you're just sort of skimming through and they're going, oh, look, it's just they're, you know, regurgitating everything from the 90s in some fashion again. But you just have to kind of hope that you find the thing that sticks with you. I mean, really, that is one of the advantages of a streaming service. You can sample, and if it's not your bag, then you move on. And if it is, you've got something really cool.
Well, and as we've seen with COVID, they're not making nearly as much money in theatrical releases. So if you listen just before Bob Iger stepped away, he talked about how we've got to have streaming content. This is the future. We've got to provide the content. And that, because they had such a large membership growth, like they exploded. They didn't expect to get that many subscribers in that short amount of time. So they're like, we've got to have more content to put in there.
It was like 80% from Utah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Scarlett Johansson's like, hey. Hey.
But I think for the most part, the quality's been up there. I think it kind of depends. The kids shows tend to be a little bit cheaper made just in general.
Lower budget.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. But then you have like really high quality shows like The Mandalorian, which is creating new technology that other film studios are now using, that dome projection.
They brought it to Utah and shot with it at least 3 times
Yeah.
here in the past year, which is really cool.
Yeah, so I mean, they created that for that TV show on a streaming platform that's now kind of becoming the industry standard. So I think the quality's there.
My kids they go a lot. I mean, judge a book by its cover kind of thing. They'll watch some of the trailers and love it. They love the Benedict Society, and we got all hooked. And I'm trying to figure out the name of the other one where it was that they would go down into a cellar and then come back in a different time, and I cannot remember the name of it.
Sulphur Springs.
Yes, that one. And my kids love it. We haven't watched a lot of the other remakes, but they love those. But my kids are also a little bit older, so theirs is all of the Marvel.
I think for me, I was upset because when I saw the Benedict Society, I tuned in thinking it was going to be all about Benedict Cumberbatch.
And then it wasn't.
And then it wasn't. And then I was really disappointed for like 3 days.
You're like, I got Tony Hale, which is okay, but he's not Benedict.
The thing that's made me happy about that one's based on a book series, but they're kind of slow paced, and I thought my kids would get bored, but they have been as hooked as.
So super smart.
Yeah, they really, really like those books. I mean, the TV shows, they loved What If. The one remake the one original that my 11-year-old will not watch is The Falcon and Winter Soldier, because she has been obsessed with Captain America, Chris Evans, since she was 2. And she's now 11, and she will not watch it. She was okay with
Ty won't watch it either.
Hey, yeah, we're okay here.
She was okay
I had to
with
watch
Peggy
it
Carter
for-
in What If, but she will not watch it because Chris Evans will always be Captain America in her eyes. She won't, they even show the previews. No!
She's writing letters. Marvel.
She's not okay with
How
that.
dare you?
I'm thinking about like the show quality. I mean, let's be honest, the Disney Channel shows were not that great.
Whoa. I was about to say.
Like they were entertaining, sure. Like so my kid loves Descendants, right? And so do I. But the effects and the stage settings and the costumes on that are not that great.
I feel like I could have made the costumes on that show.
Right? And I mean, sure, the songs are fun, but you've got 1993 graphics sure were neat.
I don't know, maybe that's why my kids have suddenly gotten hooked with Doctor Who, because they're used to the same.
I'm expecting
Special
that
effects.
dancing baby from the 1995 viral video to start
No.
walking out.
I'm not on point with a lot of the newer Disney teenage shows coming out. So yeah, I was the 90s baby, and so all the ones like Halloween Town and Can of Worms and basically all those from the 90s, except High School Musical, that one.
But what
knock
about
it
High
off.
School Musical, the musical?
No, absolutely not. No, but that's
Colin, you want to come up here? And a bunch of those?
All right, so I want to know, and we'll start with John and work our way down. And John, shorten it up a little.
You saying I talked to them?
Yeah, I do. I am saying that with all the love in the world.
And respect.
And all the love in the world. What are a few of your favorite things that you think if somebody has never, and this is a thing, somebody's never tuned into Disney Plus, because there are people out there, I've seen them.
They don't follow our podcast then. The show.
I mean, we have 5 listeners, so what do you think, like 2 or 3 things that is a must see on Disney Plus right now?
Clone Wars. So if you're
Yes.
just getting into the Star Wars animated, all those different universes that kind of splinter off, they need to watch those, because I had not seen Clone Wars the cartoon, and I was like, how did I miss this? So that, and then like Scott was saying, the Disney parks history.
Mhm.
Like, oh my gosh, if you're a Disney fan and you're seeing that stuff for the first time, like you're hooked for days. Like that's a rabbit hole that you can spend. You've got a whole holiday weekend of holiday fun in there. The end.
I was gonna say the thing that actually hooked me very first about Disney Plus was the 90s Halloween movies. Halloween Town is actually my very favorite, and so as soon as I found out that they're all gonna be on there, I'm like, so I want it because that's what I watch all through October. But I would say I like a lot of the original shows, especially like if you're a Marvel fan, then yes, I think those are all a big must. I like a lot of the originals all the way through it, but for the history of it, if they've ever been if they've ever been a Disney fan of anything, I think it's a good place to go because I got to go back and watch shows that I hadn't seen for years and years, and there's still some like the Black Cauldron and a couple others that I still haven't seen all the way through.
What?
I know. My kids turn it on.
Take her off the
I hear it. I don't watch it sometimes, but so there's still some from the originals that if you love Disney at all, it's worth it because of all the content that's on there, old and new.
I did want to specifically mention the Imagineering story, which was one of the first things on there, and is just an amazing treasure trove of stuff about the history of the Disney parks creation. Beyond that, you mentioned the shorts, and I specifically want to note the Pixar Spark shorts.
Yes.
I think it's great to have a place where new talent, diverse voices can have a chance to try something out. And if it's not, it's just it doesn't have to be a big budget thing. It's a way to get the new animators a chance to tell their individual stories. And I think there's some really wonderful stuff. And if you haven't seen also Doug Day's, the Doug shorts, chef kiss. But then just one thing that's not really a show, but just conceptually, and I know this is kind of a controversial thing. I love that the series drop weekly and not drop all at once.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is important to be able to keep the conversation going over weeks, and I think that's what made shows like The Mandalorian and the Marvel shows continue to have a little bit of currency, where you have your Netflix series that drops, and a week later nobody is talking about it anymore. So I really think it is actually a good thing that you have to wait and think about it, and kind of ponder over what's going to happen next,
and shower.
Take
I'm saying that from experience. Netflix keeps me from showering on a weekly basis.
Binging is not necessarily the healthiest thing, so I'm glad that they do that with their shows.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up the Pixar shorts, and now they've started a Disney short where the thing that's so great about streaming is it allows the creators to tell stories they normally wouldn't be able to.
And at whatever length.
Exactly, and tell it in their own way, and still have an audience to show it to. I'm a big fan of the Marvel stuff. WandaVision I thought was absolutely incredible. Loki was great. But the other thing that I love too is going back and watching some of the original animated classics, getting back and seeing Pinocchio and Sleeping Beauty and some of those, because the artwork in there is just so beautiful. And to think that there were that many people doing that by hand is just fantastic.
So mine, I guess, and with a 5-year-old at home, trying to introduce her to some of the stuff like Darkwing Duck, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, just a lot of those classic animated series from back in the 90s are definitely, if you haven't watched those, it's something to get into.
I love it that there are so many deep dives you can do. Like obviously Ty and I are not close to the same age. And every once in a while I'll get like a screenshot from him and he's like, what the heck is this movie? And it's like some old movie, Things Are on Fire, or The Devil Is Coming, it's just like we discover things together, and we're all at different levels of being a fan because we all came into Disney a different way, right? I remember watching Disney every night when, on Channel 4, they would have, the different Disney shows. I'm going to go a little different route. I love everything they said. And I'm going to say this. If you have not, I have the Bob Iger book on audio book. And then if you do that with the Imagineering series and you listen and watch kind of in tandem, it's really magical because he's explaining things and then you go and watch the things and it just kind of works really well together along with the charcuterie board. It's fantastic. So just all of those things at the same time. But I love that I can go and watch all of the nature shows because there's more than just the Disney content now that they have other things.
National Geographic.
I love the National Geographic stuff. And I know that may not be the most popular answer, but I love that you can go on there and see all of their nature shows, all National Geographic. My daughter, who is going to be 20 in a couple of weeks, that hurts my feelings, a month. She loves that The Simpsons is on there, and she just turns on The Simpsons and just watches it all the way through. So it's, everyone at my house, and we're all different ages, has something to watch. And so I think that's fantastic. We're going to do questions and answers or just thoughts, because I think as Disney fans, we just like to share the things that we love about Disney and know that someone else loves those things as well. So if you have a question for anybody on the panel, if you have a thought or a story you want to share, raise your hand. The microphone will come around. If you don't say or want to share anything, we're more than happy just to keep talking till the time runs out. We'll just tell John to keep going.
I've got a quick question for all these guys.
Yeah.
How many of you guys, and this is Valerie here, who called into work or stayed home all day, Disney Plus release, and just binge watched everything?
I get off
you
work
could
at
find
like
on there?
9 a.m., all right?
I
may have been watching during the show.
I was getting messages throughout the day. She was in her pajamas, just chilling out, watching Disney Plus all day that it released. Did any of you guys call in on the release date or just hang out?
I was working from home.
Look
So
at the
it's
rest
not like
of us, Val. We all went to work.
It's not my fault. You're all chumps. You don't know how to roll. Me. I don't have a real job, okay? And for a year, I was working out of my basement. I walked 7 feet into the other room, and I don't want to change my clothes. And then I could walk 5 more feet into the living room and watch Disney Plus all day.
And there was one day where you lost power and you had to broadcast from your car.
Yeah.
She did a radio show from her car.
Yeah.
That was
watch
impressive.
Disney Plus on her phone.
Listen, I have priorities in my life, okay?
I just wanted to say real quick, the other series that I thought of is, I think it's One Day at Disney.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where they go through and they have some of the most interesting stuff. Like there's a guy whose job as a scuba diver.
Yes, it was
He's
so
a scuba
cool.
diver at Disneyland. He gets to go and check out all the boats. He gets to go through the Finding Nemo, making sure everything's working and in good shape. The people who take care of the animals at Animal Kingdom out in Florida.
Yeah.
That's a really fun series. If you haven't checked that one out.
How have I not seen that one?
I don't know, John.
What?
Well, add that to your list. Anybody have questions, comments? Yes, right here up front, and then we'll go right there.
Which one?
Right here up front, and then we'll go back there, and then to Cruella.
So what are your thoughts on Premier Access, and do you think it'll continue after the pandemic?
Good question.
I think they just got rid of it, didn't they? Like just now, they said they're gonna, put the rest out in the theaters.
I think
Or was
they're
it specific ones?
canceling. They're going to be getting rid of it, especially after the Scarlett Johansson thing. I think they're going to try to push back to coming more to the theater release for those major films. So I think it's something that's going to be going away.
I mean, it's going to remain an option. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing is the more options you have as a company, the better off you are. And I think they may not go that route for their big tent poles, but they may offer that thing for something where they're not 100% sure it's going to make $100 million in its theatrical opening.
Yeah, I think they're going to stay with like they have shorter theatrical windows before it goes to Disney
like
Plus.
45 days now. I
Yeah,
think.
and so I think that's going to remain an option because I do think, unfortunately, because I love the theater experience, and I think there are certain films that just need to be watched on the big screen. I do think, though, there are some people out there that just will never feel like they need to go back to the theater. I have a couple of some friends that, John, that just doesn't ever want to go back to the theater.
This room is too crowded.
Which is funny because it's the cleanest time to go back to the theater. I remember the 90s and my feet stuck to the floor at Valley Fair Mall. I think it's going to remain an option. I don't think it's ever going to go away now because we are now in the digital streaming world.
Yeah.
And it just is going to be the way that it is. Yeah.
Do you think it was a mistake to put Luca on just a no theatrical for that one? Do you think that they will do that again for upcoming Pixar releases?
Oh, without being in the theater like Luca? I don't think so. In fact, a lot of Pixar employees that worked on that film were very frustrated and upset that they did not get at least premiere access, let alone a theatrical release. So my guess is that won't. You'll get some of the shorts, you'll get some of those that'll come directly to the stream, but I think for the big, especially Pixar movies from now on, I think that was a misstep on their
I think that, but the dynamic was different for the kids' films because you couldn't be vaccinated if you're under 12.
Yeah.
So they didn't have quite the same. I mean, that's something that already has affected the upcoming Addams Family sequel. That they've got to make sure that they've got a streaming access availability for that. So, I mean, I still think that.
I think if they're going to stream it, it'll be a Premier Access though.
I mean, it's unlikely to happen now that we're just moving in a certain direction. I just think at the time there was really no, unless you were going to delay it for another 6 months to 9 months, it was not going to go to theaters only.
Cruella, and then right here up front. Cruella back there. Thanks for showing up, by the way, Cruella. Your movie was fabulous.
Yes, I'll bring you with my preference, it's fine. So this is just a comment. So I actually work on pediatric psych unit, and one of the things we can watch is most Disney Plus, not all, we can't watch Marvel or anything because it's violence, but my kids work with, we want to watch like the old Disney movies, but we kind of have to censor what they watch. We can't watch Pinocchio because Pleasure Island and drinking and smoking and turning into acids. And we can't watch Great Mouse Detective because the burlesque scene and getting drunk on multiple occasions in that movie. Like, we have to censor what they actually watch. We can't watch all the old Disney movies they want.
No fun will be had.
I don't choose it. I'm like, yeah, let's watch these things. Like, I love this. And then management's like, that's not kosher. These kids are doing That's it.
Yeah. And we've seen a lot of that where they have put like the warnings before, some of our favorite classic animated Disney shows. And I think it's good to put it on there for, new generations to watch. I'm glad that they have the warning there instead of just taking them away from us.
That's what I'm saying. Lilo and Stitch, you straight up changed the whole scene. Remember when we were about the dryer scene?
Yeah.
I'm like, you could have thrown a warning or something without ripping a whole scene out of the.
He's writing letters.
I'm wondering who had or remembered the sort of silver tin Disney collections, where you'd have Leonard Maltin occasionally, and this was especially true of some of the older shorts where it would be just sort of a little historical look. This is what this was going on at the time, and this is why this representation was there. We don't consider, but we're not going to change it. And I think that's how you deal with grown-ups.
Yeah.
You let them, you give them the information, and you allow them to make those choices. So I think that I would appreciate it if they would actually just recycle some of those old Leonard Maltin intros for Disney Plus and say, we're going to offer it to you. Just understand that this was, what it was at the time.
Otherwise, you just get a continued loop of Snow White cleaning and nothing else.
Right here up front. I'm going to do the Disney point. I worked for Disney for a long time. You can't point with one finger. It's got to be two.
So I just wanted to mention, if anyone has watched The Magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom, there's an episode where they get a bunch of new zebras. One of them is named Clementine, and she was born here in Utah at Utah Zoo.
Oh, nice.
And I saw the episode, I was like, Clementine, how many zebras? She was the right age. And I did get that confirmed with the keeper at the zoo.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
I like that. Yes, Loki?
So clearly I am a huge fan of Loki. So my least favorite part of the show was the whole weird romance subplot there. So what were all of your opinions on that? Like, did you like it? Did you not like it? What was your thoughts?
I'll jump in there because if you're going to make a point of saying that your character is queer, basically, that there was enough content or enough context to assume that, then you can at least not have the most conventional type of romance possible. You're going to push that. I mean, I think Disney keeps wanting to get credit for things they're not actually willing to do. It's like, look at this, we have someone dancing with a man. Well, la-di-da, thank you for that crumb from the table. So I would have appreciated something that actually took seriously what they were claiming to be doing with that character and making him, bi or pan or whatever it would seem to be.
And I kind of liked it and hated it because at first I was like, he's in love with himself.
That is
so Loki, also so me in the 1990s.
True,
he was there. And so I really liked that aspect of it because he is so in love with himself. It wouldn't matter if it was with any of the Lokis, if he would have met them first and it challenged him, you know, I think he would have, yeah, the alligator, I think he still has love for the alligator.
Oh, yeah.
But so I loved that. But then the same as Scott, I was like, but like, you're telling us one thing and you're showing us another thing. So I wish they would have pushed that and challenged that a little bit more. But I did at first. I was like, he is totally in love with himself. And I thought they nailed it because he is totally in love with himself.
Well, think about it this way. Look at the Loki that we had through pretty much the entire first phases of the MCU. And it took clear until Thanos was about to snap his neck to have him, you know, have a change of heart and kind of have some resentment and wanting to change for his brother, but then he, you know, gets lopped off. We don't want to have a Loki that we have to go through another how many films to change. So I think
You
Sylvie.
don't?
No, I'm saying like, yeah, I want more films, but I don't want to have to relive Loki's life story. But I think Sylvie was that component that, you know, flipped the switch for him a little bit faster so that he's the hero that we need now instead of, you know, 20-some movies down the road. So
I'm a total hopeless romantic, so I actually loved it. My kids are like, ew, he loves himself. That's so gross.
hey, self-love.
She was kind of clearly the strongest Loki, and the Loki that we know and love is the one that's always looking for the power. So for me, it made total sense for me to go for her because he likes the power. He wants to be and she was the one that was going to beat whatever it was. So that's who he's going to go for, and then he's going to kind of fall for her. So for me, it just felt natural. Not natural because he fell in love with himself, and it was like a bunch of different Lokis. But you know what I mean? It just, he's one that has always loved power. So he went for the most powerful Loki there was.
That's a good point.
That awkwardness you just described was actually me in the 90s. So
Facts.
she was there.
I looked at that as if, from a different point of view. I looked at that as a fable sort of that says you need to love yourself.
Yeah.
And if everyone gets that message, everything will be much better. So that's all I say.
I get the feeling that there's like a lot of self-loathing in Loki. So for him to actually appreciate and love and care for himself was a nice thing. But
I just wanted more therapy sessions with Owen Wilson.
yes.
Right?
Maybe season 2.
I better get an episode where he is on a jet ski. Wow.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. If there's no more questions, will somebody like do some random Disney trivia so we can give away some of these things that I have? I have the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith little golden book. This is from my own private collection. You can't have these Doctor Strange stickers that are really neat. Elena, this is her DVD, and then I have 2 of these Mickey and the Roadster Racer DVDs. So, anybody throw out trivia question? Anybody? No one. All right, I'm gonna go easy since I'll do it. It's fine. This is my job. Yeah. Do you have a question? Oh yeah, No, I know. Yeah, I got you. Actually, I'm only gonna go 2 more minutes. But okay, so I'm gonna start out easy. Do not yell this out. If you know the answer, raise your hand, and I'm gonna start easy for the Elena DVD. What was the first animated Disney movie? Yes, sir.
Maybe in the Steamboat.
No.
No.
That was the first official Walt Disney.
First
Full-length animated. Snow White is correct. You can come up here and grab that. Actually, I'll just let you pick. I'll let you pick what you want. I won't make you take this one. I don't want a letter later. Val in this panel made me take this one. Okay, anybody else think of anything before I keep going with my trivia? No? Nobody? Okay. Nobody likes to have fun. I'm the only one.
I got a hard one, but
yeah, do a hard and I'll give them 2 if you have a
You'll
really
give me
hard
2?
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many years did it take to complete the Haunted Mansion attraction at Disneyland?
Ooh.
Complete or open?
Complete from start or opening concept to finishing like opening day.
You all have phones.
The answer is literally at your fingertips.
Because it was finished, but sat unused.
No, but from opening from early concept to the very
For the
first
day it
opening
opened.
day.
Okay.
To the day the first
Alright.
person rode
It's
the
the
ride.
longest that any Disney ride has ever taken to.
Who can tell me the 45th animated Disney feature?
Everybody's reaching their phones.
Pascal is in this movie. Yes. Tangled is right. I'm so nice because I just want to give these away.
Tangled is 50, not 45.
Is it 50?
Tangled
Okay,
is
I'll let
50.
you have one for knowing
Correct.
that, and then so you can come take one. You can take one. You guys don't know how many prizes are sitting in my house at home because for 2 years I didn't get to do events, and I'm just ready to get rid of everything. So every panel I have pretty much is going to have prizes. So, anyone else? Does anybody know the answer? Okay, Cruella.
1961 to 1969.
Is that right for that ride?
8 years.
8 years. It was. We can give him one for being the first person to try it, but it was longer than that.
Do you want to come up and
From
grab one,
opening
Cruella?
concept
I want to
to
say 11.
it was longer.
Wow.
All right, well, tell us. You're fine. You can come for being brave enough to look and to answer. What did you say? It
No,
was-
so from opening day when Walt wanted to start with the Museum of the Weird to the opening day where they got the attraction going, it was 18 years.
Wow.
So 18 years. It's crazy.
Dang.
Longest Disney ride ever.
How many countries are represented in the Small World attraction?
Ooh. Last prize. Again, you all have Google. And if you don't like these movies, you can return them to Walmart because Walmart will take anything back and exchange it for something else that you want. I'm not telling you that I've done that before.
It's just recorded.
That's good because FYE stopped buying stuff from me, so that
You're on the list.
you can't come back here anymore, Mr. Smith.
It's like a big picture of John. Do not take any trade-ins from
Like,
this
but
man.
FanX is coming up. I need to buy G.I. Joe figures.
So really quickly, before we end up today, everybody, did you know the answer to that?
It is not 7.
Okay, not 7. My next panel will be at 5 o'clock. We're talking about the do's and don'ts of tattoo fandom tattoos. So if you guys want to come to that, you can. Everybody give just your next panel, whether it's today or tomorrow, so everybody come see you. And thank you guys so much for coming to this panel, by the way.
So mine is going to be later today, I think at 4 o'clock.